So thanks everyone for coming today. We're doing the workshop, Improve Your Work-Life Balance in a Hybrid World. I think it's something we can all relate to. Obviously, the last year has been challenging. A lot of workplaces have had to adapt, and remote work's been obviously increasing a lot because of COVID. So so we're just going to be talking about some things today, just regarding kind of just I guess tips for improving productivity at home, just some challenges we face, and we're going to go over to the kind of the history of hybrid work, which actually kind of goes back further than we all think, and some of the challenges that kind of people have historically faced. So with that in mind, we'll just get started.
Yeah, great. So just some friendly reminders. Please be respectful of other viewers, listeners, whatever you want to call it. Just kind of keep yourself on mute just kind of while the presentation is going on. If at any time you do have any comments or questions or anything like that, please feel free to use the chat box. We've also designated some time at the end just to take any questions or comments or anything like that. Also, the webinar is being recorded as well.
All right, so my name is Vito Grammatico. I'm the CEO of TimeLyft, and TimeLyft actually helps with time management. So the idea, it's a software that allows you to really just be able to be aware and identify and improve on how you're using your time and improving that work-life balance. So obviously very excited to be able to talk to you guys today about hybrid work.
Awesome, thanks Vito. And I am Tiana Hoffman. I'm the Senior Solutions Manager for GaiaDigits. We've created a software called Gaia Workspace, which is designated to help employers with their employees when it comes to the work and life balance of being able to go within their hybrid work environments from the office to the office, designated workspaces, etc. I'm excited to meet you all today.
Yeah, so what is a hybrid workplace? So obviously, having that combination of remote work and in-office work. And sometimes we have some staff that focus on one or the other, and sometimes we rotate. But the idea is that a workplace where not everyone's in the office, right? So that hybrid office has obviously become very popular over the last year as we're moving to different phases of COVID-19. Obviously, everything every workplace is reviewing moving forward. What do we do, right? So just gonna put a bit of a poll on the screen here. If you're able to answer it really quickly, it's just, what is your current hybrid workplace? And that'll just pop up in a second there. So if you have a second just to click on that, there's 3 options. So we'll just see what you guys say there. But obviously, I think we'll kind of get into it a little bit in terms of statistics, but just obviously a lot of new people doing the hybrid model, and it's definitely been something that we've been building up for a while. So okay, so we got our statistics here. Thanks everyone for answering. So majority of people, actually, it says here, working from home right now. So 63%, which makes a lot of sense, right? 25% doing a hybrid of work and home, and then 13% just in the office. So, and we have seen people like that just have found a way to do that. Obviously, like the working from home is very popular right now, so it makes a lot of sense.
Awesome. So let's jump into it a little bit more, and let's talk a little bit about the history. So the history of remote work actually dates back all the way 1800s, if you really think about it. We're thinking of when people worked from home as hunters and gatherers, right? Hunters went out, that was their office, and then obviously the gatherers, for the most part, were within close proximity of their household or cooking, etc. But we're not going to talk all the way from back then and work it up to today. Let's just start from the 1990s and make it simple. So the 1990s, there was a large telecommunication experiment that got out, which was the Federal Flexible Workplace Pilot Project. They didn't want to call it work from home, remote, the fancy names that we kind of use now. It was kind of just called flexi places. Instead of hybrid, it was flexi place. That was the name of it. Very interesting. So this study was done in the States specifically, just so we do bear that in mind. But the information is going to be quite similar to what we're going to see in Canada as well. So they did about 550 employees that participated, and the results showed a large benefit when it came to improved productivity, eliminated need for office space, and reduced cost overall. So if we think about that, that was the 1990s that study was done, and we see that type of result in the 1990s. Let's look at what computers were back then. It was not anything close to what we have now. We're years later, and we have technology like Microsoft Teams, like Google Workspace, etc. There's so much advancement in technology over those years, and sometimes we still struggle a little bit now with technology and everything. But it's interesting to think that so long ago we still had all of those benefits that came through, and then from 2000 to 2010, they took a look at those census reports. So if anyone knows, at your household, you get a census report that gets sent to your household every single year, taking a look at, what's your current situation within your household. That is what this study is based off of. So surprisingly, those are not useless. They actually have a very good use for it. It really, something that we can take some information from. So from 2000 to 2010, 35% increase in remote working. So at least one day at home per week. So 4 million people showed that, the number of people working from home. That's insane. So remote workers increased from an entire decade to 4.2 million. That's a lot of people increase. And that's, again, 2000 to 2010. And really interesting enough, the remote workers were private company employees, not self-employed. So that was 59% of those people. So it's not people that own their own businesses and they're working from their household. This is people working for an actual structure or company itself that's not owned by themselves, right? And 50.5% of those remote workers actually had a better education and a higher pay, which is, again, very interestingly enough, that remote working has been in history for so long. So from 2010 to 2015, again, this is from this information from the state that I was able to pull here. There was an act that I don't know if many people know about, that Obama had administrated. And what this act was in 2010 was basically, and not just like an encouragement, but a requirement that all federal executive agencies establish policies for eligible employees to work from home. Okay, so within the 5 years that act had been in place, there was about a 10% increase rate in remote workers across the states. So we're looking at from 39% to 46% of eligible employees, and from 17 to 20 of all employees. So it was a large push, and it's interesting to think that we do believe that COVID was the reason that we are working from home, but history is obviously showing us that that's most definitely not true, that this was a push way before COVID had even happened. And a lot of the, as you can see on the screen here, the most common outcomes included. So this is looking at within the 5-year frame of people working from home. This is what they had found within that act and in the study on that act. And a famous man, to me, famous maybe not to too many people, but Jack Niles, he's the father of telecommunications. Telecommunications being defined as anything that's not a conversation face-to-face. So that's anything digital, which is what we're doing right now. We're using telecommunication currently. So Jack Niles did basically a large presentation talking about working from home or hybrid working or mixing your work and life balance. And what he said basically is the biggest barrier to the rapid expansion of remote work is not a lack of access to high-speed internet, better technology, or more affordable devices. It's changing organizations and managerial norms. So Father of Communication basically stated that the biggest issue that we're facing is nothing to do with the technology itself. It's the push towards the technology. So looking at it and information, let's look at the stepping stones for what the future could really offer us. So with COVID-19, we noticed that there was a large reduce in operational expenses. 88% is what a study had said. 88%, that's a lot of money. So we're looking at, okay, with all of that expenses, how can we output that in a better form now? So again, another study was done where they looked at the differences, what employees stated versus what executives said. And we're looking at 50% of execs and 44% of employees said the costs cost savings that were done throughout that time should be redirected to digital transformation, such as, you know, computers, phones, whatever it is, for their employees. So it's interesting that execs actually saw that more than an employee. I'm not going to explain every single one of them on the screen for you. I'm sure that you guys can take a read out of all of that. But another one I want to point out, which is at the bottom here, that 60% of execs and 59% of employees said their companies still do not integrate, you know, fully integrate all of their systems, meaning some of them are still using a lot of old basic forms or old systems that worked in the 1990s, that may have worked in the 1980s or worked at different times. But now we're looking at 2021 where systems have very, very much advanced, and it's important to want to integrate a lot of those systems all together. So avoiding history repeating itself. So in the BBC News, Professor Bayliss from University of Liverpool basically stated that in the last 20 years, we've had 6 significant threats. That's all the way from SARS to Ebola to the influenza, etc. We dodged all those bullets, and now we're looking at, you know, COVID-19 really hit us. It was the pandemic that really became a pandemic. And 1.5 million unknown viruses. So public health is unaware of a lot of viruses that are out there. We didn't know about COVID-19, right? We didn't know about this other variant of the SARS virus, and we only know about 3,000 of them. So with that information, we know about 0.1% of viruses that are out there. So the chances of another pandemic happening is pretty high, very high. And employees obviously want their personal safety prioritized. And unfortunately, 60% of executives and 44% of employees believe that their company is going to prioritize the workplace over the safety of their employees. So that came down to, during COVID, did they have all the proper equipment out there? Did they actually do any research? Did they, you know, make sure that the protocols were actually properly being put into place? And that's outside of, well, Health Canada told us this. It's no, we're going to do this because we want to protect your safety. Was that the situation within your company or not? And 46%, so basically, even if a company tries to put safety first, employees still found that they really couldn't pull it off to ensure a lot of safety. And 46% of employees stated that. So very interesting enough.
So when considering remote work, it's important to look at the challenges of it. So the challenges of the remote work model, 6 main challenges that we've identified here. So number 1, overworking or potential burnout. And it's actually based on a Stats Canada survey, 35% of all new remote workers report working longer hours. And it's actually interesting that managers do so in greater proportion than that. So that's kind of the average, but managers actually, 51% of them report working longer hours when remote working, which is interesting. And we'll get to kind of the reasoning behind that. I think part of it is just, you know, I think it's a lot easier to be accountable for staff in the office than at home. So there's definitely a challenge there, and we'll go over some solutions in terms of addressing that as well shortly. Number 2, distractions. So, I mean, obviously when working at home, different set of distractions, not that there isn't at, you know, in the office as well, but at home, obviously, you know, if you have your children at home, or just, you know, sometimes, you know, there's maintenance, or just, you know, maybe technology goes down. So there's different things that kind of can impact you at home and, you know, compared to work in the office. Number 3 is organizing time. So really it's all about like there being a lack of boundaries around work times. So when you're at home, obviously, and it happens to me as well, you know, you just kind of get in the middle of a task, and next thing you know, you're half an hour over your work time, right? So it's really just a kind of part of that, and also a lack of awareness of daily accomplishments. So when you're at home, it's a little bit of a different, if you don't have a tracking system in place, it's a little more difficult to organize your time. So number 4 is technology issues. Now, this isn't as widespread as we thought it would be, to be honest. So it was 5% of workers that accomplished less at home reported difficulty with internet speed as the main reason. So obviously it can happen. I think, you know, I think probably during the beginning of the pandemic, people weren't set up for that. So you kind of saw more of it, whereas I think now it's been sorted out a bit, although there are still situations where the internet will go down in an area, right? And I know it's happened to my team as well, and it can really impact productivity. So number 5 is being noticed. So this is interesting and from like a psychological perspective, I guess, but obviously workers at home, in terms of like, they just don't, it's more difficult to kind of have your work be noticed and be kind of stand out, I guess. When you're in the office, your presence is felt a bit more, but at home, it's easy to kind of get like, just go unseen. And that can impact employees' productivity really. Obviously that sense of validation and also just accomplishment. If there isn't somebody there to kind of notice the hard work they're doing, it can impact their productivity moving forward. And the final one here, number 6, socialization. So 20% of workers that accomplished less at home reported a lack of interaction with coworkers as the main reason for this. So again, that's from a Stats Canada report, and it makes sense. I think we all kind of work in different ways. If someone's more extroverted, that socialization is really important. But I think even introverts have found there is a certain amount of socialization that is essential for the work, and also just that interaction is still needed, right? So, and we'll kind of get into that dynamic a bit later on as well. But obviously, something to be mindful of. And Zoom, interactive, virtual meetings help, but obviously, still, it doesn't necessarily replace that, in-person meetings, and it's something that can be challenging. So now with that in mind, we're going to kind of go over the challenges of hybrid workspace. So combining that remote work and in office, and how that can add some unique challenges.
Yes, before I get started here, I just want to apologize if the whole time I was talking last time, if there was a lot of noise in the background. I think I'm competing with my fan there. So thanks, Anna, for letting me know that. Hopefully it's a little bit better now. Is it a little bit better now? All right, that's me competing with my fan. So I'll burn up a little bit. Okay, so the challenges of hybrid workspace models. So yeah, let's take a really deep look into that. So transitioning between home and work, we're looking at the conflict of being able to jump into the office, jump at home, being able to work that schedule out, the time management behind all of that. It's a large thing we need to think about. Seamless connectivity. So that's going to be exactly kind of what Vito said just there. Is your internet working fine? Are you able to actually work from home to begin with? Are you able to keep in contact with each one of your employees? If you have a very large organization, you're speaking with 15 to 20 people, are you able to actually have a conversation with 15 to 20 people and have them engaged? Which actually brings us to another point that I'll get to in a second. Transparency, that's another beautiful one. So another big question when it comes down to remote working and office working is cameras being on. Is that something that we want people to see transparency wise? Are you actually working when you're at home versus when you're in the office? When you're in the office, it's very clear to see when you are not working, to the full extent of what your job could be entailing you to do, versus when you're at home, unless you're on camera the whole time and showing yourself working, you may not be working to the ability that you normally would without distractions in the background. And that's even when it comes down to people working in the office. What about talking amongst each other and having conversations amongst each other and having that deep engagement? So going on to the next point, deep engagement with everyone involved. That's everyone that's working from home and everyone that's working in the office. Do you have the same type of engagement amongst one another? Are you having a good relationship with each one of your colleagues? Because that is very important to any workplace, having a good amount of connections with everyone around you. And we also now need to take into consideration the employee well-being. So for us to have a good connection amongst each other, a lot of times that involves having in-person interactions, not just over the phone technology. And with that means taking considerations of people's safety. We needed to stand 6 feet apart from each other with masks, with sanitization, with a bodysuit, basically, just to have a conversation with someone, or you were not allowed to do that at all. So we also have to remember when it comes to being in the office or being at home, are we taking into consideration the safety of not only ourselves, but everyone else involved? Are we doing the precautions that we're supposed to be doing? Just like how nowadays it seems that we are pushing towards mandating the vaccination, which, you know, it's a very, very, very controversial topic. So I'm not going to get started on that, but it's the employee well-being, is the company as well as every employee considering everyone's well-being. And finally, the physical office. So now that we're talking about the actual physical office, if you're not working from home and you're working in the office, are you designating certain workspaces? Are you leaving enough room for each people to be there? How are you managing that to begin with? Who gets to come in the office? When does that person get to the office? A large issue that a lot of companies actually overhired during COVID. They overhired, meaning that there was too many people to work inside the commercial office. How are you going to manage that now? So there's quite a lot of challenges when it comes down to hybrid workplace. And now we're going to kind of move a little bit into time management skills with Vito again.
Yeah, so kind of get into a bit of, you know, more solution oriented, I guess, but the Harvard Business Review identified 3 skills that are crucial to managing your time. So the first one is awareness. So obviously being kind of just aware of the time you have available and what can be accomplished in a day. Obviously, you know, it's something that really it helps when you're monitoring your time usage. It's crucial for that. It's one thing to kind of just try to mentally kind of touch base with yourself and seeing that, but when you can actually see it, it's another thing. And there's a poll on the screen right now. If you want to take a second, just answer which of these 3, and you can select multiple if you want. Do you feel you need improvement on? So the second time management skill, arrangement. And this is essentially planning, right? So effectively planning your activities and goals. So obviously it's one thing if you're aware of how you're using your time or what you have available. It's another, what are you planning out throughout, like whether it be the week or the month, in terms of things you're going to do. And again, it's a big part of this really is visualizing your progress towards goal on a month-to-month basis. So you'll be able to see your activity being completed, just visualizing how that kind of plays into your available time is an important part of arrangement. And finally, number 3 is adaptation, which is really all about adjusting. So monitoring your time usage and adjusting as needed is a big part of adaptation. And this can be a challenging one. I know I think it's, you know, something that's because of the obviously priorities that come and go throughout the, you know, throughout work. It's so crucial to kind of understand, okay, what's the priority today? Or, you know, like you might have had something planned, but is it, you know, should it be moved, you know? So it's difficult to adjust if you can't visualize and track how you're using your time. Something to keep in mind as well in regard to that.
Yeah. I don't know if everyone can see me putting my answer in there, can you?
Yeah, so yeah, thanks for everyone who had a chance to answer there. It seems like arrangement was a big thing for everyone. Yeah, those that voted. But yeah, like I said, I know all 3 of them can, you know, obviously affect this. So with that in mind, for work-life balance, it's important to understand your priorities. It's a big part of it, right? Yeah, so, but we'll get that in a second. But first, just kind of how to improve your time management. There's 7 things I'm going to mention here. We'll get into a bit more in terms of, you know, identifying that. But so number 1 is making a schedule. Okay, so particularly for like if you're in the advisory field or a financial landscape, just having a service model for client touch points is really crucial in that regard. And any client-based position, really, just having those touch points really helps to, first of all, set some, and we'll get into it, boundaries in regards to your time. Number 2 is prioritize. So the average worker spends 2.4 hours per day in meetings, and a lot of that actually isn't really productive. So with that in mind, if the 2.4 hours is being taken away, you know, make sure that you're prioritizing the remaining time for what needs to be accomplished. Now, if something can be done by email sometimes as opposed to a meeting, or, you know, if there's better ways of kind of addressing things, it's important to keep that in mind as well to free up some of that time, because 2.4 hours, if you're working an 8-hour day, that's a big part of your day. Number 3 is setting boundaries. So clients are crucial to your business, right? So it's, with that in mind though, it's important to set parameters for when you're available to them. And a big part of that is just setting clear touch points, whether it be monthly or whatever, your service model is, and hours availability. So obviously, listen, there's certain clients, in terms of customer service, you're going to, respond to outside of your regular hours. But by setting parameters and just having them understand when your touch points are going to be, it really does reduce that, element of, just getting contacted outside of, your hours of work, really. And, that can really be a big part of maintaining balance and improving your time management, is just being able to keep as much of your work focused into your workday as possible. Otherwise, it starts to bleed out into the other areas. So it's also important to, obviously leave time for breaks. Breaks have been found to increase productivity. I know at home, it can be, like I said, the idea of just taking that time when you're in the middle of a task to take a break can be challenging. So, do your best to kind of put reminders in place. Number 5, avoid distractions. So if there's certain distractions that you're going to, see in the office or at home, find ways to avoid or minimize those as much as possible. For example, I know personally, there's been members of my team, there's been some flooding in our area. So there's been maintenance required. So they've, obviously had maintenance workers coming throughout the day, and that's obviously distracting. So, but there's only so much you can do about that. But what you can avoid, try to. Number 6 is using technology to your advantage. So time management applications can boost your productivity and increase accountability amongst employees. We're saying that's a big thing, is, just the accountability of staff feeling like you're going unnoticed, and also just as a manager, again, a lot of managers are going over their time, usual work, because of, remote work. So being able to have a system in place that helps you with accountability of your staff can really save you time. And number 7, finally, just don't procrastinate. If something needs to get done, don't delay it. Try to, if it's a priority, get it finished. Or just, it's a good way to improve in that area. Okay, so with work-life balance, a big part of it, and I was saying a second ago, was understanding your priorities. So it's important to identify what your top 2 or 3 priorities are in terms of life. And I list the 8 here on this slide. There could be a bit more, but these kind of sum up the majority of categories for you. So just to summarize the 8 here, it's personal growth, family, friends, love, recreation, money, health, and career. So obviously those are 8 major categories for like your life, right? So in terms of prioritizing, it's good to compare each of these and understand where your top ones are. So for example, let's say personal growth is important to you, compare it to each of the other ones and determine if that one is a higher priority than the others. And then you'll kind of whittle it down to 2 or 3. Obviously, career already has a built-in time in your day, right? Keep that in mind. So a lot of people don't answer career as being their top priorities in life because they're already putting so much time into it. So identifying 2 other priorities outside of your career that you want to address daily is really important for work-life balance. Having those other areas addressed, if they're important to you and you're ignoring them every day, you're not going to feel energized. You're going to, feel like your balance is out of whack, and it will be, right? So, and keep in mind that tracking your work capacity and the hours you work is essential to maintaining balance. So understanding the time that you've actually put into your business is crucial to being able to kind of improve that balance moving forward.
Just out of curiosity, if anyone could actually put into the chat box, we won't have people just kind of screaming their answers here, but if you could add to the chat box kind of what your 3 main, priorities are off that list there, just out of curiosity. If you feel free, you can actually, I think you can, in the chat box, you can state who you want to send it to. You can send it to either me, Vito, or Betty, if you'd like. Betty's another person from our team here. Just out of curiosity, we're just kind of interested.
Yeah, we see, like I said, a lot of, interestingly enough, career is very rarely in the top 2 priorities for people in life. We see a lot of, obviously, like health, obviously very, very important to people, family, personal growth, all things that we see a lot of, and makes sense, obviously.
Yeah. I hope people choose health. Your health should be very important to you.
Yeah, and it's important to keep in mind, yeah, too, like, right, yeah, I mean, keep that in mind when you're comparing these. Is like, which, if you ignored, would have a detriment to your, quality of life, right? So, I mean, it's, money's great, but obviously if you don't have your health, right? So yeah, it's more challenging than it seems. But anyway, yeah, thanks for anyone who gives us a response there.
Yeah, we're just all curious, we want to see your priorities out. So we'll move on just for a little bit for now. Thanks to anyone who does put that in there. So advantages of a hybrid work environment. So I spoke a little bit about some of the challenges we may have, but let's discuss a little bit maybe about the advantages of it. So obviously reducing operations costs, that's a big one. Imagine not having to put all of your money allocated to a large commercial workspace to encompass every single person that works within your facility inside of that commercial space. Not only is the space being allocated, being saved, we're talking about the power, we're talking about the technology that's allocated to make sure that person has a phone when they're there, a computer when they're there, or whatever kind of stuff they need, right? So overall, there's just a large reduction in operations cost. A lot of people say an increased productivity between life and work balance. So that means, touching a little bit what Vito said about time management. So if a person can properly, manage their time, and that's something that they're very good at, is being able to properly manage their own time and take a good amount of responsibility and accountability. Obviously, they're going to have a large increase in productivity. They're taking care of their personal life matters as well as their work matters, and as a whole they feel more full as a person, which again is causing an increase in productivity. So enabling distributed teams. So this is a really good example for you. As for GaiaDigits, I live in Hamilton when most of us kind of live out in Windsor, and we're able to have that distance between us, and there's no issues with it, right? I do work a hybrid model, meaning I do go to the office here and there, but that small little drive for the one meeting every single month, not a big deal. And it makes it very easy that I'm able to live in the city that I choose to live in, while they get to live in the city that they choose to live in. And that distributed team makes it very easy with technology. And helping employees financially. Financially, if I don't have to drive to work every single day, that's a whole cost just by itself. Insurance, I'm going to be saving on. The car itself, you're going to be saving on. As an employee, it really does save you a ton of money. For the most part, you don't have to get up and make sure you're grabbing a coffee on your way to work or whatever it is, right? Everything's at home. Everything's at home. You can make your food at home. Overall, it really does financially help an employee and overall operational costs. Oh, it's not changing slides here. Sorry. There we go. So collaborative and safe workplace. So taking all of that information we kind of gathered together, how are we going to have that collaborative and safe workplace? So we got to understand our space usage. We got to understand facilities and resource allocations. So both of that's going to obviously be having a software, having an ability to discuss who gets to come into the office and when. Right? Facilities and resource allocation. So again, that's going to be where are we going to have the availability for resources? So do we give our employees computers? Do we give our employees phones? Or do we help them pay for some of the stuff that way? Because if you do think of a commercial space, if pens, papers, erasers, whatever kind of stuff you have sitting at the office for people to constantly kind of take and use and at their own free will, we don't need that anymore. Especially if it's going to be allocated to something like digital software. And if we really do think about it, you probably save a lot more money giving someone a $700 computer versus spending, $10 a day almost on pens. I don't know about you, but I've lost a lot of pens that my work has provided me with. I don't think I've kept any of those pens, but I've used a lot of them. Employees and visitor as well, right? If people are coming into your workplace, that's even like a retail environment or maybe like a financial service place. You can have meeting outside of the office and everything, but even coming into the office, right? We got to remember every employee and every visitor, they're coming in contact with physical health, and safety precautions are being taken into consideration for that. Employees' mental health. This is another really big one that I'm actually really, really thankful that people are taking the time to kind of discuss this. To me, hybrid workplaces are really focusing on being able to have your mental health taken into consideration. If you're working from home, maybe there's a day that you just don't really want to be around people. Maybe you're an introvert of some sorts, and you'd like to be at home, and you'd like to be able to not be around people because maybe your mental health isn't all there today. That's okay, right? You can go home, work from home, work at the pace that you can work at, and be able to take that personal time to really work on yourself and improve how you feel about work or life. Cross-platform collaboration. So this is kind of an interesting one to discuss, and it kind of touches a little bit about in-person collaboration. So I'll kind of just mix them a little bit into two. So that's going to be a little bit about if someone's working in the office and someone's working at home, how can you ensure that there's a nice, smooth connection between the two of them? So that's going to be, if we're all on a call right now, but I've actually, let's say me and Vito, we're presenting today, but we're actually in the exact same office, and we're having a conversation in person to one another. How does everyone else that's on the Zoom call today, how do you have that conversation and understand that there's that deep connection between every single one of us? Right? Because if people are in person, the chances of a conversation being struck up between the two of them versus struck up between the person that's in person as well as the person that's on the Zoom call, it's a difficult thing. That cross-platform is something that really needs close attention being paid to. So how to create that? Well, to create a safe and efficient collaborative workplaces, there's many different ways you can do it. Depending on the industry you're in, there's going to be so many different forms of how this can be done. But the biggest one is going to be understanding your employees on a deeper level. And we're going to touch a little bit into that on the next slide. There's a lot of different ways you can manage this, but that's going to also be, when you're hiring them, understand the type of person that they are. How do they want to work? Do they want to work from home? Do they want to work remote? Do they want to work hybrid? Why do they want that? Not just, what do you want to work, but why do you want to work that? How is it going to benefit you? How is it going to benefit the company, etc.? And understanding the type of person that is as well, right? We all have very individualism, and it's important to understand exactly how that person is going to work and who that person really is. And then how to streamline that. And it has to be kind of done in a digital way, because if we do have people that's working from home, we do have people that's working in the office, we kind of need to streamline this process. And thankfully, there's a lot of softwares out there that offer the ability to use this process and streamline it in a digital way, because it does need to be digital. With a lot of people working from home, it has to be digital. So just like Vito's product with TimeLyft, you've got that availability of working with your time management, or with my company, Gaia Workspace. We focus a lot on all of the different aspects that we are discussing today when it comes to ensuring that your process is being streamlined for your hybrid workplace. So mental and physical health, again, that's being considered, making sure that you're checking not only yourself, but checking with your employees, ensuring that that conversation is being had and that there is someone available that someone can speak with and know about the resources that are around, and understand that if someone needs to take the day off for a physical or mental reason, that is perfectly okay, and they're definitely inclined to be able to do that. So make use of tools that improve deep engagement. That's going to be Zoom. That's going to be Microsoft Teams. That's going to be whatever it is available, even picking up the phone and having a call with your employees if you have to. If they're working from home all the time, it's good to have a good connection with the people that you're working with. It's just very important. It's very important. It changes how people work as a whole. So with that comes doing collaborative team engagement. So celebrating a holiday together, celebrating a birthday together, even if you do a 15-minute call, just as a team to kind of bring it all together, it really improves the engagement of people that are working together. And then in the end, how we end up working together. If a team is very collaborative together and works very deep engaged, the chances of that team being very successful is a lot higher. So yeah, it's important to do all those good things, and understanding how to create a better environment comes from understanding your employees. So this is something just kind of very interesting. There's many different resources out there that you can use, many different tests that are out there. You could quite literally search online, work personality test, and there'll be about 15,000 of them that will pop up. This is just one that I have used before in the past with our workplace, and it just kind of, got me thinking. This is also a free resource. There's a lot of paid ones, such as the Myers-Briggs. That is a really good test. It is very insightful. It's something like 150 questions, and I swear to you, it is it's amazing. I've done it before. I loved it. The Myers-Briggs, it's amazing, but it's paid and it's a lot of money. And if you don't want to allocate the money towards that, then having something like a free resource like this one could be a good one. So the link is at the top there. So I'm just going to kind of go into a little bit of detail just about what it's kind of showing here. So what it is looking at your team roles, and that can be looked at from a hybrid work perspective. So understanding your team, and you're going to have characteristics of every single one of these. It's the best thing about this test, right? You're looking at, you have a little bit of driver, a little bit of explorer, a little bit of team player, a little bit of all of these, but you're going to be higher in some of them than the others. So if we're looking at driver, so this type of person is going to be very ambitious and energetic, and can appear to be very impatient, impulsive. Funny enough, that's exactly what I am. I am a driver. I am I have a lot of energy. I am a driver. I am like 19% driver in me, and it shows. I've been told it shows. Explorer. The explorer is generally an extrovert by nature, and he or she is cheerful or gregarious, which is basically just very happy, and likes to explore, obviously. We got a chairperson. The chairperson has a strong coordinating role with emphasis on procedure. So this person wants to see structure, wants to see procedures, wants to see things kind of done kind of a certain way. Instead of with a chairperson, you're going to say, hey, can you do this project for me? I'd like to see this, this, and this. That person's going to love that. You know how to interact with that person a little bit better when you understand this. Innovator. The innovator is often a creative general person. This is the person that you want to go to when you have a creative idea. Hey, Vito, if you're an innovator, then I'm going to come to you because you know exactly what to randomly think of. You're going to think of a great idea that I would have never thought of. You're creative as can be. Team player. The team player is caring, avoids conflicts, fosters harmony. This person's the person that wants the team to get together, the person that really wants everyone to feel a part of the team. They don't want conflicts. They don't want problems. They just want to work together nicely. They're great people for a team orientation.
And one thing is these are, everybody's not one thing, right? So you're like, and I've done one of these tests for this hybrid test here, and you're going to be multiple things, right? Like Tiana had said, 19% driver, right? But that's, that'll be your predominant one. But I think we have a balance, but the primary one is the one that kind of stands out sometimes. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You could be many different things. I am 100%, a 19% driver. Sorry, not 100%. I'm a 19% driver, but exactly like Vito said, I have a lot of other different aspects from different ones. Yeah, continuing on here, executive. So the executive is someone who refers to be as the organizer. So this is the person that's mainly usually going to be the leader, right? The large leadership role person. If you take a look at your boss, how much of an executive are they? What their percentage of an executive, and does it show? It's interesting. Analysis. The analysis tends to be the reserved and critical type. So this is actually going to be more, if you do have an analysis person at your organization, then chances are that's exactly what they're going to be, right? They'll be 19% analysis. But this could even be, your administration person, the person that doesn't like to talk to a lot of people, just wants to get their work done. They're a little bit more introverted type people. The expert has the skills and expertise required for specific tasks at hand. A lot of times an expert's going to be someone a little bit more in the trades. So if we're looking at someone who's an electrician, they're really good with electricity. That's what they do for a living. They put themselves into that type of role for a reason, because they're an expert. That is their team role. And finally, the compeller. The compeller is very conscientious and feels responsible for the team achievements. So this is going to be a person that's going to feel a little bit more, they'll feel down on themselves that they're not succeeding as a team. If the team is not succeeding, they feel like they're responsible for it. This again might be a boss, once again, or a leader within any role. This person might feel that they are responsible for everyone else on the team. So that kind of ties into a little bit about introvert, extrovert versus ambivert. So a lot of these different roles, driver, explorer, chairperson, chances of the, or team player, right? Those people are going to be more extroverted than they're introverted. But at the same time, you can be a driver, explorer, chairperson, team player, and be an ambivert, meaning you have a lot of analysis, expert, compeller within you, where you like to be on your own some. So although I am a 19% driver, I am 100% ambivert. I love my alone time, but I am also extremely extroverted, right? So understanding how that person works, because that's going to make a large difference as well within the workplace. How do you interact with these people? Introverts, they don't want to have conversations face to face. They're a little bit more about, give me a call, send me a text, something like that. So this can be used inside your personal life as well as in your work life, understanding just their role, how to interact with them, whether it's introvert, extrovert, ambivert, or of course their team role. And I'll bring it on to Vito.
Okay, so this is just wrapping up today, and really just want to leave everyone with 4 main things to take away in terms of maintaining your work-life balance. Okay, so number 1 is work weekly or daily check-in, and what I mean by that is just kind of monitoring yourself in terms of your energy level, in terms of just how you kind of feel at the end or beginning of a day, right? If you're feeling burnt out, if you're feeling like you're still thinking about work, I guess, at like 11 at night, you're probably not having that balance, and it's a checkpoint. And it's important to be honest with yourself and just say, okay, like, did I ignore some of my other priorities? And we kind of talked about that. So obviously, like, a big thing is if you're feeling like something's not right, I personally recommend meditation if you're open to that at all. It's a great way to kind of center yourself and just kind of reflect on that. So number 2, in terms of maintaining work-life balance, make time for your priorities. So we kind of went over those 8 categories of life, and then the important things to us. What are your top 2 priorities outside of your career? Making time for these priorities increases productivity, but it also maintains your balance. And I guarantee your energy level every day will be better if you know that you're addressing the things that are important to you in life. If you feel like you're ignoring it and just focusing on work, you're not going to feel that balance at all. So number 3 for maintaining work-life balance, develop a service model for your clients. So, which is all about really just having touch points in place, whether it be monthly check-ins with your clients, just being consistent. So clients will have more respect for your time if you set clear boundaries. So listen, again, some clients might reach out to you outside of the time you told them, and I'm sure you'll accommodate it to an extent, and that's fine. But setting certain boundaries is good in terms of most clients will follow that. And you know what, if they know there's a touch point coming, then they're gonna probably just wait. If they, okay, I'm gonna have a meeting with my advisor or my sales associate or whatever it might be. If they know next week they're going to have a touch point with you, or you just called them the previous week, they're probably not going to feel as urgent of a need to talk to you. And a big part of developing that service model too is categorization of clients. So it's a great thing, especially in the advisory field, in terms of just having 4 kind of tiers of clients in terms of maybe it's net assets under management, whatever your criteria is there, and just setting certain touch points based on those levels. Obviously, somebody who's your biggest client is going to expect more from you, right? So maybe you set aside a lunch every year or something like that, right? But having that built into your service model is a great way to kind of, first of all, touch into that idea of planning, which is a big part of time management, right? So having that in place really does address the planning side of time management. And finally, number 4, the fourth thing to take away from maintaining work-life balance is monitoring your time usage. So, and that ties into awareness. We talked about awareness, adaptation, planning for time management. And yeah, I mean, if you're not aware of the time you're using, it's difficult to kind of keep those in balance. So track your hourly profitability of clients. It's a great way to kind of identify, okay, how many hours am I putting into a client relative to what I'm earning from them? And if it's a really low profitability, and you're really busy and you're trying to take on more clients, it's something to look at. You have to consider it, right? You can't ignore it. There's other factors for clients as well, right? You got to look at referrals and, likability, a lot of different things to consider, but profitability is one of the most important. And I mean, at the end of the day, it'll impact your work-life balance. If you're putting too much time into certain clients for little, revenue, really you're just throwing your balance off. And, if every client starts expecting that, you're going to be making a lot less than your value. So it's important to value your time. So focusing on high profitability, and you'll achieve more work-life balance. And that's something I know, obviously GaiaDigits and TimeLyft can help out with our solutions. I know through TimeLyft, we actually will provide hourly profitability ratings for all of your clients. And that's just based on importing data from your CRM system. So yeah, those are the 4 things we want to kind of leave you with is, again, just to summarize. Number 1, weekly or daily check-in. Number 2, make time for your priorities. Number 3, develop a service model for your clients. And number 4, monitor your time usage.
Yeah, Vito, I kind of want to touch a little bit because I just thought about this now off the top of my head here. I remember I worked for a financial advisor for a little bit of time, and I remember I did a little bit of training along with it. I know that what they used to do when it came to prioritizing your clients was they were named depending on the revenue was, AAA client, AA client, A client, B client, C client type of thing. And that's something to kind of think about as well. I don't know what type of training I did or anything about what I'm talking about right now, but I know that that's something that touches a little bit about just understand the profitability and how to allocate your time within each one of those clients was based off of their AAA client. You put a lot of time in those people. If they were AA client, good amount of time. A client, again, a little bit of good amount of time and everything like that. But
that's great point. Yeah, I mean, and it's so important too to be able to have a system to segment them, right? Because you bring new clients on board, and things get lost in the shuffle. Even if you set out to do a service model, you need something to kind of help optimize it for you.
Yeah.
I know it's one of the solutions TimeLyft kind of gives too, is just segmenting your clients, just having them automatically kind of segmented based on the revenue they earn for you. So yeah, I mean, 100%, it's just a great way to organize your time.
Awesome. All right, everyone. So that kind of concludes us talking your ears off. So this would be the time. If you have any questions, comments, stuff you want to bring to the table yourselves, maybe something that you thought of that you kind of wish that we inputted inside of this and you want to talk about it yourself, please take yourself off mute. Let's talk about it.